Hey everybody. Today we're going to be looking at learning target 2C, and that is looking at moving on from ionic bonding to now look at covalent bonding and drawing Lewis structures for covalent bonds, similar to what we did for ionic compounds. We're going to start by looking at the nomenclature or the naming of binary molecular compounds. And remember, the prefix bi from ionic compounds means two. So we're looking at naming molecular compounds that have two atoms in them, or two different kinds of atoms. So binary molecular compounds are composed of two nonmetals or metalloids, so that right side of the periodic table, not the left where all the metals are. Composed of two nonmetals or metalloids that share electrons. So instead of in ionic compounds where there's a transfer of electrons, now the two atoms are going to share their electrons to satisfy that octet rule, i.e. trying to have 8 valence electrons to feel like they have a full octet, like the noble gases. So our nomenclature rules we'll go through, and then we'll look at some examples of actually how to apply them for naming molecular compounds. So the first two are similar to ionic. So just like ionic compounds, the first element, we have the name staying the same. In the second element, the ending, just like we saw in ionic compounds, is going to change to ide, I-D-E, okay? Now the next rules for nomenclature are going to be a little different than ionic, okay? So ionic compounds don't use prefixes. Molecular compounds do. And these prefixes are indicating the number of atoms, or how many atoms of each how many atoms of that element are in the compound. The exception is we never use the prefix mono on the first elements. Okay, so look at the right, you see the table of atoms and prefixes. If you have one atom of an element, it has the prefix mono when we name it. 2 atoms of an element, it has the prefix di. Tri for 3, tetra for 4, all the way down to deca for 10. Now, penta through deca, 5 through 10, those probably look similar to what you've seen in math with pentagons, hexagons. 1 through 4 may be a little bit different than what you're used to seeing. But when we're looking at these, we can look at the number of atoms of the element that's in the compound, and we use this prefix to name it. So for example, and looking at how we don't use mono on the first element, SF6 would not be monosulfur. Even though there's only one atom of sulfur, we don't use mono to name the first element. So SF6 would not be monosulfur hexafluoride. We get rid of that mono on the first element. So it would be sulfur hexafluoride. And for the hexa for fluoride comes from the number 6. We see 6 atoms gives it the prefix hexa. So F6 is hexafluoride. And this side chart that you see here, it's also on the back of the periodic table, or page 2 of your periodic table that's linked for you. The next rule is if we're working with oxide, we drop the prefix O or A before the oxide, so when oxygen is involved. So for example, we're going to write monoxide or hexoxide if we have 1 oxygen or 6 oxygens. We are not going to write monooxide or hexaoxide, right? Monoxide and hexoxide really kind of flow off the tongue a little bit better. All right. Next, we never reduce formulas. Unlike ionic compounds, where if you have 2 atoms of one element and 4 of another, that can reduce to 1 and 2. We don't reduce formulas for molecular compounds because the prefixes over here tell us exactly how many of that compound there are, or how many of that element there are. Okay. The exceptions to our naming rules is H2O, as you know, is named water, and H3 is named ammonia. And that's not to be confused with ammonium, which we saw in ionic compounds, and that is NH4 with a plus charge. It's our only positive polyatomic ion, okay? So ammonia is NH3. Now, when we're looking at CO and CO2, if we were going to name these, we see both of them have carbon and only 1 carbon. So we're not using the prefix mono, it's the first element. So both of these are going to start with carbon. Now the first one there on the left, CO, it only has 1 O. All right, but it does have O, so we know it's an oxide. We just need to figure out what the prefix is for 1 oxygen. And if you look at the right here, mono is 1. So we have monoxide. Remember that we're dropping that O in mono because it's right before oxide. And then our second one, we have CO2. We know again O is there, so this is another oxide. And we look at the prefix for 2 atoms of oxygen, and it is di. So we have carbon dioxide is CO2. Okay. Now these are you're not going to actually have to look at how to name inorganic acids, but I did want to show you these because inorganic acids are also molecular compounds. And these are molecular compounds that dissociate, or they break apart when you dissolve them in water. When they dissociate in water, they produce ions, H plus and a negative ion. Okay, so again, you're not going to have to name these, but let's look at the general formula because acids are incredibly important in chemistry. We will use them this year, hopefully when we're back on campus, and so you want to be able to recognize acids. So in order to recognize them, we're going to look at this generic formula that you're shown here, HAAQ. So all acids, all inorganic acids start with H, either 1 H, 2 H's, or 3 H's, and those H's are hydrogen. And if you look at the right there, you can see these H's are all in red, right? So they all start with hydrogen. They all have an anion, that comes after the hydrogen. So first we have the anion chloride, nitrate, acetate, sulfate, carbonate, phosphate, right? So they all have an anion, whether it's a polyatomic anion or not. It just depends on the acid. And then they all have to end in AQ. And that AQ indicates the state, right? For these, it is aqueous. They have been dissolved in water, so they're called aqueous. And we designate that with an AQ. So you can see all of them in green at the right have AQ there, right? What we can also see is that these are going to be on the back of the periodic table for you. So these are listed for you. They are the main inorganic acids. They're the ones that we use most often, actually that are used most often in chemistry, and we use most often in this class. So you don't have to memorize them, but you do need to be able to recognize them. So look at your periodic table, reference table to see those and their names. Let's take a quick look at properties of molecular compounds. So our molecular compounds, their bonds are called covalent, and sometimes we'll refer to the compounds as covalent compounds. Molecular compound, covalent compound, it's kind of interchangeable. Molecular compounds are all states at room temperature, whereas ionic compounds were mostly solids. We see that molecular compounds can be solid, like sugar. They can be liquid, like ammonia, which you use to clean in your house, or they can be gas, like air, right? So they can be all states at room temperature. They have relatively low melting and boiling points, which, if you remember, ionic compounds were on the other end. They have very high melting and boiling points because ionic bonds are very strong. They're much stronger than covalent bonds. All right. Now, also molecular compounds, unlike ionic compounds, they do not conduct electricity in their pure state. So they make great insulators. And we see this in our wiring and electronics. You'll see plastic insulation being wrapped around your metal conductors, usually copper wires or some other metal wires, to insulate it, because you don't want the charge that's being moved along the copper to go anywhere else, right? That can be really dangerous, which is why we need to make sure that they are insulated with plastic, which is covalent compound. Okay. Now, there's three types of covalent bonds, and we're going to look at drawing these in a second, but you need to recognize them in a Lewis structure. So these that you see here, the drawings that you see here, are Lewis structures for covalent compounds. Looks a little different than the Lewis structures for ionic compounds, because you'll notice there are no charges on here, right? Because these are not ions, so there are no charges on covalent compound Lewis structures. Okay. Now, the three types of covalent bonds, the first one is a single bond, and this is where one pair of electrons is shared between the atoms, right? So you'll see a single line, all in this compound, only single bonds, because a single line is a single bond. Each of these lines represents 2 electrons. So 2 electrons that are being shared. 1 electron being shared from a carbon and 1 electron being shared from the hydrogen, and they share those 2 electrons back and forth. In a double bond, we have 2 pairs of electrons that are shared between atoms for a total of 4 electrons, because each pair is 2 electrons. If you have 2 pairs of 2 electrons, that's a total of 4 electrons. And you'll see that double bond between carbon in the center of this molecule. A double line is a double bond. Okay. And third, we have triple bonds, and this is 3 pairs of electrons that are shared between the atoms. If you have 3 pairs and each pair is 2 electrons, 3 times 2 gives you 6 total electrons, right? You'll see the triple bond between the 2 carbons in the center of this molecule, and a triple line is a triple bond. Now, importantly, is you'll only see double or triple bonds if one carbon is involved in the bond, right? So if there's carbon, then there can be a triple or double bond, or in diatomics of oxygen or nitrogen. So diatomic means oxygen bonding with oxygen, or nitrogen bonding with nitrogen, and you'll see a double bond between the 2 oxygens and a triple bond between the 2 nitrogens. So those are the only times we'll see double or triple bonds, with carbon or with diatomics of oxygen and nitrogen. Since we just saw an example of diatomics, I want to look quickly at what diatomic elements are, because diatomic elements bonding are an example of a covalent bond, because diatomics are all nonmetals. Now, let's look at the periodic table here, and you see 7 different elements that are highlighted in yellow: hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine. For these 7 highlighted elements, atoms of the same element can share electrons. So 2 atoms of hydrogen can share electrons with each other. 2 atoms of nitrogen can share electrons with each other, with just each other. And therefore, atoms of these 7 elements will never be found as individual atoms. They will never be found by themselves. They will either bond with with an atom of a different element, or they will bond with an atom of their own element. So for example, what that looks like is if we look at nitrogen, which you see here is atomic number 7, it is highlighted in yellow, which means it is a diatomic that will the atom will share electrons with another atom of the same element. It can be found as N2, right? That is 2 nitrogens sharing electrons. It could also share electrons with different elements, right? It could be N2O, it could be NO2, it could be NH3. It will never be found as N by itself. Alternatively, if we look at carbon, which if you look at carbon on the periodic table, it's atomic number 6, it is not highlighted in yellow, which means it is not a diatomic. So it can be found by C as C all by itself, as carbon. And we actually know carbon in different forms. We know carbon as diamond. We know carbon as coal, right? So carbon can exist by itself. It can bond with other atoms, CH4, CO, CO2. Carbon can never be found, because it's not a diatomic, can never be found as C2. Carbon will not have atoms sharing electrons with other atoms of carbon, right? So diatomics can bond with themselves. Non-diatomics cannot bond with themselves. All right, so let's look at how to draw the Lewis structures for molecular compounds. You really need a periodic table for this, but I will just tell you what group each of the elements are in so that you can figure out how many valence electrons there are. So we're going to use these steps on the left for drawing the Lewis structures and the example on the right to follow along. So we're going to use the example of water, H2O, first. We're going to count the total valence electrons as shown by the formula. Now the formula is H2O, so we need to count the total valence electrons for the whole formula. Well, we see that in H2O there are 2 hydrogens, and each hydrogen is in group 1 on the periodic table, so each hydrogen has 1 valence electron. Okay, 2 times 1 gives us a total number of valence electrons for hydrogen of 2. In H2O there is 1 oxygen. Oxygen on the periodic table is in group 16, so it has 6 valence electrons, and 1 times 6 gives us a total of 6 electrons for hydrogen, for a total of 6 plus 2, which is 8 electrons. Okay. There's step 1. Step 2, we're going to draw the Lewis structures for each atom. And we're going to use lines to connect the pairs. Okay, so let's first draw the Lewis structure for each atom. I'm going to start with oxygen. And why I'm starting with oxygen is if you look at 2A down here, it says that the central atom will be the first element listed in the formula, unless that first element is hydrogen, which in water it is. So we know it's not going to be hydrogen. It will never be hydrogen. So that means that our central atom is oxygen. Now, that's the one that I'm going to draw first. So I'll draw oxygen, and I'm going to draw the Lewis structure for it. Now, again, oxygen has 6 valence electrons, so I will draw our 6 valence electrons around oxygen. Oops, didn't mean to draw that last one. Okay, so we have 6 valence electrons around oxygen. Now I'm going to draw in hydrogen. Now I'm going to draw the hydrogens pretty close to where the unbonded electron or unpaired electrons on oxygen are, just to make my structure a little neater. Okay, so I'm going to draw hydrogen with its 1 valence electron. And then I'm going to draw the second hydrogen with its 1 valence electron near the bottom, because that's where the unpaired electrons on oxygen are. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect those pairs, the unbonded electrons, unpaired electrons, with a line. So it's basically playing connect the dots. These 2 electrons on hydrogen and oxygen are unpaired, so we're going to put a bond between them. These 2 electrons on oxygen and hydrogen are unpaired, so we're going to put a bond between them. Okay. Those are the only ones that are unpaired. Now, step 3 says draw the revised actual Lewis structure. Now I'm going to draw this, redraw it, because we need to make it neater. Okay, so I'm going to draw oxygen over here with a hydrogen coming out the left and a hydrogen coming out the bottom. Okay, so there's my basic structure. Now step 4 says the non-bonded electron pairs remain as lone pairs, and we draw those lone pairs as just simply a pair of electrons. So anywhere we see the lone pairs on our original structure that we drew here, right, those 2 lone pairs, we're going to draw in on our actual structure on the right. So 1 pair on top, 1 pair on the right. Okay, so there's our structure for water. Now we need to double check our work. That's always a good idea. So step 5 says to count the total electrons and that it should match our count from step 1. Okay. Now remember, in our little call out bubble here, a line is 2 electrons. So anytime we see a line, like between oxygen and hydrogen, that counts as 2 electrons because each of those atoms is sharing 1 electron with the other. Okay, so we have 1 line here from oxygen to hydrogen, there's 2 electrons. 1 between this oxygen and hydrogen, that's 2 electrons, so now we're at 4. We have a pair up top, that gives us 6, and a pair on the right, that gives us 8. Okay, so we count 8 electrons. And that is the same number that we got for our count from step 1. Okay, so everything checks out. It's a good idea also just to check the octet rule. Do our elements have a full octet? Now for oxygen, that means it needs 8 electrons around it. Well, it has 2 on top, 2 on right, 2 in the bond on the bottom, and 2 in the bond on the left, for a total of 8. Hydrogen, remember, has a full octet, quote unquote octet, with only 2 electrons because only 2 electrons fit in that first energy level. Now we're going to draw the Lewis structure for molecular compounds that have a double bond in it. Now remember, I'm not going to have you draw the double or triple bond structures from scratch. I will actually give you the skeleton structure when there's a double or triple bond involved. Okay, so let's follow the steps along over here again. We're going to count the total valence electrons shown by the formula, just like we did for water. So our example that we're using is CO2. Well, there's 1 carbon in CO2, and carbon is in the 14th group on the periodic table, so it has 4 valence electrons. So 1 times 4 gives us a total of 4 electrons coming from carbon. There are 2 oxygens in CO2, Oxygen is in group 16 on the periodic table, so it has 6 valence electrons for a total of 12, right? 6 times 2 equals 12. When we add those together, we get a total of 16 electrons that need to be shown in this molecular compound. Okay. Now remember, if you see my little call-out bubble over here, if you see a double bond, that represents 4 electrons. A triple bond is 6 electrons because each individual line counts as 2 electrons. Okay, so step 3 says count the electrons shown in the atomic or in the skeleton structure. So in our skeleton structure that I've given you at the top, we're going to count how many electrons are shown. Remember, each double bond is 4 electrons. Well, we have a double bond on the left for 4 and a double bond on the right for 4. So we have 8 electrons shown in the skeleton of CO2. Okay. Now step 4 says we need to subtract. How many total electrons do we say we need minus how many skeleton electrons are already shown? Okay, so for us that means 16 minus 8. We have 16 total, we have 8 that are shown, and that means we have 8 left over that we're going to need to draw in. Now these, step 5 says, are going to be added as lone pairs. Now we need to figure out which atom to add these on, keeping in mind that octet rule. Okay, so all atoms want or are going to follow that octet rule to have 8 electrons around it. Now if you look at carbon, it already has 8 electrons around it. It has 4 coming from the double bond with the left O and 4 coming from the double bond with the right O. That means carbon's octet rule is already satisfied. So the remaining 8 electrons are going to need to be drawn around the oxygens. Now each of those oxygens has 4 electrons around it, right? Because each of them has 1 double bond. So they still need 4 apiece. We're going to add those 4 apiece as a lone pair or as lone pairs. Okay. Now when we draw these, we draw them as far away from each other and as far away from the bond as possible because the bonds represent electrons, the pairs represent electrons, electrons are negative, and therefore they repel each other. They don't want to be near each other. So the first pair I'll draw up here on oxygen. The second pair I'll kind of draw at a diagonal right there on oxygen. It's not super important where you draw them, just make sure you're adding them as pairs around that oxygen. They cannot go in the spot where there's a bond, okay? So you cannot draw them where there's already a bond. Now the right oxygen needs 2 pairs on it as well, okay? Now we're going to count the total electrons that are shown, right? We have, I can't really, oh yeah, I can show you here. We have 2, 4, and 4 with this bond is 8. Another 4 with this double bond is 12. Another 2 with this lone pair is 14, and another 2 with this lone pair is 16, okay? Does it match our electron count from step 1? Our electron count from step 1 was 16, and yes, it matches. And we've already checked the octet rule, right? That's how we drew in those valence electrons or those lone pair electrons on oxygen, so we know that the octet rule has been followed. And that is a double bond molecular Lewis structure.